Hello everyone, my name is Christian and welcome to my hobby blog. Today we are ranking the first half of the Wheel of Time that I have read. So that is Eye of the World, The Great Hunt, Dragon Reborn, Shadow Rising, Fires of Heaven, Lord of Chaos, Crown of Swords, and New Spring. 8 books total, but 7 main novels. So I'm halfway through the main novels of the Wheel of Time. I just finished over the weekend and I've already filmed a about 2 hour discussion on Crown of Swords, which will come out soon. I just got to edit it. So I wanted to just do a non-spoiler review on the series so far. And I thought this would be a great way to just lay out my feelings on each book. Without further ado, let's go ahead and go into the tier list. So the first book that I read, of course, is Eye of the World. Everyone recommends that. But Eye of the World is book 1. I wasn't as into this book as I thought I would as I read through the series, but I'm listening to the Real Reeves right now, and they're going through chapter by chapter of the whole series. They just started Fires of Heaven, but I'm listening through Eye of the World, and I'm remembering a lot more that I liked than I did when I was reading it, because when I was reading it, I was really sick of our main characters going to a tavern or an inn and having to run away. That happens multiple times and I hated it. But I really like the ending to this book, so I'm going to put it on feelings right now in the... I'll put it in the C column. I think it'll be much stronger when I reread it, especially once this TV show comes out and we get to see how the books are adapted. So that's book 1. Let's go on to book 2, The Great Hunt. The Great Hunt, I loved it all the way through. What's funny is that I tried to go directly into book 2 after finishing book 1. And I've heard many people say to buffer them, like just read a different book that's like not fantasy in between each of these books. And I did not do that for this, and I could only get past the first few chapters, and I was so burnt out, especially knowing that I had 14 other books after book 1, if you include New Spring. So I took a break for like a week or two to read another book. I think I read a Stephen King book, and it re-energized me for the series, and I knocked it out in a couple days, and I loved it. So I'm going to put it up in the A column, the A tier, I guess. I really enjoyed it. This is really when it breaks away from the Lord of the Rings formula and starts becoming its own. But I really enjoyed The Great Hunt. There was a lot more POVs in this book. I'm a huge A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin fan, and there are so many point of views in those books, and I love having different point of views, because in Eye of the World it's mostly like just a couple, and The Great Hunt is the first one where it really expands. So I'm putting that in the A column. Dragon Reborn, book 3. This is at the point of the series that I am for Dragon Reborn. This is when I start thinking to myself, wow, this book is even better than the last one. And that continues for a while. And Dragon Reborn, one of our main POVs, isn't really there throughout the whole book until the end. And I was actually really happy for that, because it allowed us to spend more time with the other characters and get their point of views and their thoughts and motivations. The ending is just amazing. It's one of my favorite covers. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a tier list with the original covers, so I'm just sitting here with the grocery store bread aisle covers. That's what I call them. I hate these covers. They look like those books you see at like Harris Teeter or Food Lion that have just like, looks like a romance novel. But anyways, Dragon Reborn, it was one of my favorites. I'm going to put it above The Great Hunt. Now, Shadow Rising. This one, I loved it. I loved the sequence in the middle of the book that really explained a lot, but also left a lot of questions. Shadow Rising, it had us seeing locations that I didn't think we would see for a very long time. And I really love how we get to explore a new faction that has a lot of influence behind the scenes. And they really came to the forefront in this book, and especially in Fires of Heaven. But Shadow Rising is amazing. This is going to be a really boring tier list because most of it's going to be in the S&A tier. So, now, book 5. Book 5. Fires of Heaven. It's my favorite book so far in the whole series right now. So that's going to go up in the S top column. I loved... If you haven't already, you should go watch my almost 3-hour review discussion that I did with Cheyenne on this book because I loved it. I loved every storyline. I love all the characters. The ending just kept going with like 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 twists that I wasn't expecting. I love the ending to this book, and me and Cheyenne did a fake out with our review because I made it sound like we did a one big long recording session, but we actually finished the our review, and it was at like 2.5 hours or something of recording. And then like we finished it and we said goodbye, and it was like later that night we were texting. And she was like, oh yeah, we forgot to talk about this. We forgot this and that and this and that. And I was like, fuck. I was like, okay, let's record a part 2. And we'll make it sound like this is just a continuation. And not many people know that. I haven't really told anyone, but yeah. There's so much to talk about for Fires of Heaven. It's my favorite book so far in the series. I know the later books with Brandon Sanderson are really good. So for now, Fires of Heaven is the reigning champion of the series. So yeah, I love Fires of Heaven. New Spring. This is the prequel that focuses on a couple characters, and I understand why everyone reads New Spring after Fires of Heaven because of the ending, but I wish I would have read it after the whole series, because there are now things happening in Crown of Swords when I was reading it that I didn't remember any of the characters from New Spring that showed up. And the TV show is actually doing New Spring and Eye of the World with a little bit of Great Hunt for season 1. And so that's why I read it, just so I knew what was going to happen in the show. But now that I'm picking up my pace and I'll be done with the whole series by the season 1 premiere, I wish I would have waited. But I was a little nervous about my reading pace. And we still haven't had word of when it comes out. And this was like February, March, I think, is when I read New Spring. So I actually hated this book. I did not like it at all. I hated how a certain character treated another. And I really loved like the first half, but the second half was just so dreary. And I thought it was going to be covering certain events, but it ended up that was going to be a book 2 of a prequel of the prequel series that Robert Jordan was doing, but unfortunately he passed, and so he never got around to it. But the whole book is like, it's so hard to talk about without spoilers, but I did not like it at all. I think I will appreciate it a lot more after reading the whole series and knowing all the characters and knowing what's going on, because we get a couple things that are talked about in book 1 and, you know, throughout the series. That's really nice to see, and it was one of my favorite chapters yet, but I did not like New Spring all that much at all. I'm putting that in the D column. I just straight did not like it. Next is Lord of Chaos, the first book that some people say the slog begins. I disagree with that. Enough interesting things happened in Lord of Chaos that what people call the slog is more just character development. And you can watch me and Cheyenne's video discussion on that for spoilers, of course, on what I mean by that. But the ending to this book is the most insane of the series so far. It had really disturbing... it was just really disturbing, and it has a lot of implications for the future that I don't like. I mean, I like it in terms of, like, reading a novel, but, like, for the characters who I care about, I don't like it. But up until that ending, it's very slow pacing-wise. But the ending balances it out. So I'm going to have to give it a B. I liked it more than Eye of the World, but not as much as Great Hunt. Great Hunt was just phenomenal. Now we're at the last of the books that I have read. This is the halfway point of the series, and it is Crown of Swords, book 7, I want to say. Yeah, book 7. And I actually did not like this one all that much. I didn't hate it like I did New Spring, but it was rough to read. It's much smaller scope, which I enjoy, but in terms of the POVs, like, there's really 2 main POVs in this book, and I did not like the treatment of one of our POVs throughout. It was really frustrating. I can see why people put this book definitely in the slog. Like, most people say book 7 to 10 are the slog, and this is book 7, but sometimes I see people say Lord of Chaos is the beginning, but not as much. But book 7 is when the slog really starts. It's what the common consensus is, what the consensus is. And I'm wavering on calling it part of the slog because there is a lot of character development, and the ending does tie up some loose ends, which I like. So things happen. It's just, it's about 800 pages, and 700 of them was like character development, and so it was really hard to read. I definitely will put it below Eye of the World, if it'll let me. Let me do that. Okay. So that is my tier list for the entirety of what I've read through the Wheel of Time. I am loving this series. Each book that I read, I start to get a feeling of dread in me, because I know eventually it's going to end when I finish the series, and it's going to leave such a big hole in my life, because most of the time, most of the books that I've been reading lately have been fantasy, and this is one of the biggest fantasy series out there in terms of popularity, and there's a new TV show coming out, so for the next 8 years or so, Wheel of Time is going to be a huge part of my life. And so I'm really excited to get to the second half of the series, because this is when all the big stuff happens that everybody talks about, but I have no idea about because I haven't read it. And once I finished Eye of the World, I knew I was going to read the whole thing. And it was really exciting to go to my used bookstore and find books 4 to 10 and like original printing with the cool covers for like $10. It was really nice. Get out of here. And so, yeah, that's my tier list for the first half. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys comment below what your favorite books are or what your reactions are to my tier list. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day.